OTA case number is 2305-13302. The oral hearing will be live streamed. Present today is a stenographer, Ms. Alonso, who is reporting this hearing verbatim. To ensure we have an accurate record, we ask that everyone speak one at a time and not to speak over each other. Also, speak clearly and loudly. When needed, Ms. Alonso will stop the hearing process and ask for clarification. After the hearing, Ms. Alonso produced the official hearing transcript, which will be available on the Office of Tax Appeals website. The Office of Tax Appeals is an independent and neutral agency. It is not a tax court. All three judges are co-equal decision makers, and we can ask questions at any time. As a reminder, please ensure your microphone is not muted when you speak. Otherwise, we will not be able to hear you in the meeting. Additionally, please remember that these proceedings are being broadcast live, and anything said today and any information shared today is publicly viewable on the live stream. With that said, are there any questions before we go on the record?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Alonso, are you ready to go on the record? We're opening the record in the appeal of Mekhtarian. This matter is being held before the Office of Tax Appeals, and the case number is 230-513-3302. Today's date is July 15th, 2025, and the time is approximately 10:30 a.m. This hearing is being convened electronically. Today's hearing is being heard by a panel of 3 members. My name is Keith Long, and I will be the lead administrative law judge. Judge John Johnson and Hearing Officer Seth Elsom are the other members of this tax appeals panel. All 3 panel members will meet after the hearing and produce a written decision as equal participants. Although the lead judge will conduct the hearing, any panel member may ask questions or otherwise participate to ensure that we have all the information needed to decide this appeal. As a reminder, the Office of Tax Appeals is not a tax court. It is an independent appeals body. The panel does not engage in ex parte communications with either party. OTA will issue an opinion based on the opinion parties' arguments, the admitted evidence, and the relevant law. For the record, will the parties please state their name and who they represent, starting with the representatives for Franchise Tax Board.
Good morning. My name is Noel Garcia Rosenblum, representing Respondent Franchise Tax Board.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Parker. I also represent Franchise Tax Board.
Thank you. And for the taxpayer?
Yes, good morning. My name is Ray Mekhtarian. I'm the taxpayer.
Good morning. This is Nancy Mekhtarian. I'm also the taxpayer.
Thank you. The issues to be decided in today's appeal are: 1, whether appellants have established reasonable cause for the late filing of their return for the 2020 tax year, and 2, whether appellants have established a basis for abatement of the estimated tax penalty. My understanding is that both appellants intend to testify today. Mr. and Mrs. Mekhtarian, can you please confirm?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you please both raise your right hands? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. You may put your hands down. The exhibits for this appeal consist of FTB exhibits A through F and appellant exhibits 1 through 9. These exhibits were discussed at the pre-hearing conference, and they are admitted without objection. Today's hearing is expected to take approximately 45 minutes, and we will begin with appellant's opening presentation and witness testimony. Mr. and Mrs. Mekhtarian, you requested 10 minutes to make your presentation, and you may begin when ready.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Your Honors. My name is Ray Mekhtarian, and I appreciate the opportunity to present my appeal regarding the 2020 tax year. The issues before you are whether my wife and I had reasonable cause for the late filing of our tax return, whether we qualify for abatement of the estimated tax penalty. The Franchise Tax Board has asserted that my family hardship occurred after the extended filing deadline of October 15th, 2021. Respectfully, that is not accurate. In September 2021, my mother-in-law contracted a severe case of COVID-19. She was bedridden at home with an oxygen mask and required 24/7 care. Due to the surge in cases, there was no hospital beds available. My wife and I were her primary caregivers during this time, and we're also supporting her elderly mother who was also ill. This situation persisted through October 2021, directly overlapping with the extended filing deadline. Tragically, my mother-in-law passed away on January 30th, 2022. I have submitted medical records, a death certificate, and a signed statement from my wife to substantiate this timeline. Additionally, my long-term accountant, Mr. Dungy, passed away unexpectedly on May in May of 2021. I relied on him for years and was unaware and that he had not filed my tax returns. His death left me without professional guidance during a time of immense personal crisis. I've submitted records to you, including a death certificate from the family that I received. These events were not only emotionally devastating, but also logistically overwhelming for my family. I was unable to secure a new accountant or gather necessary documents in time to file. Under California law, reasonable cause exists when a taxpayer exercises ordinary business care and prudence, but is still unable to comply. This standard was affirmed in the appeal of Belcher in the year 2021 OTA 284P, where the OTA recognized that serious illness in the family can constitute reasonable cause when it directly interferes with a taxpayer's ability to meet their obligations. I respectfully submit that my circumstances meet and even exceed that threshold. Regarding the estimated tax penalty, I understand that abatement is more limited. However, I asked the panel to consider the totality of the circumstances. The same events that prevented me from filing also disrupted the ability to manage estimated tax payments. In the appeal of the Anglermer 2025 case, OTA case number 230814113, the OTA considered whether a taxpayer had reasonable cause for both late payment and estimated tax penalties. While the case was denied due to a lack of documentation, the OTA acknowledged that reasonable cause can apply if a taxpayer provides sufficient evidence of hardship and diligence. Unlike in that case, I provided detailed documentation and clear timelines of events. I did not willfully neglect my obligations. I was overwhelmed by a series of unforeseen and tragic events. Your Honors, I'm not here to avoid responsibility. I'm here to ask for fairness and compassion under law. I acted with care and prudence under extraordinary difficult circumstances. I respectfully request that the penalties for late filing an estimated tax be abated based on reasonable cause. I would also like to emphasize that I've been a taxpayer in good standing for over 30 years, and I've consistently filed my taxes on time. This is the first time I've encountered such a situation, and I deeply regret the circumstances that led to this appeal. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but I first would like to give my co-panelists the opportunity to ask questions. Uh, Hearing Officer Elsom, do you have any questions?
I had a few questions, Mr. Mekhtarian. You stated in your reply brief to FTV that you would work closely with your previous accountant, and he passed away in May of 2021. Can you explain how you discovered that he passed away and what type of correspondence you had with maybe other staff members regarding somebody else within the firm that could prepare the returns, or if they referred you to somebody else that could prepare the
Yes,
returns?
thank you.
Returns, excuse me.
The way I found out is through another firm. Ara was another. His files were given to another accountant, another CPA, and that CPA contacted me to advise me that that was the situation, and he, you know, that didn't happen until past the October deadline. It was, I believe, somewhere around November is when I found out that this happened.
Okay. And do you have any emails or phone records or any other documents where you can prove this communication with the other parent?
Yes, I one of the I had that CPA write a, an appeal documentation. There's something on record on that where the CPA wrote a lot, basically on the form, the actual appeal form itself, the abatement form, I should say, excuse me. The abatement form was filled out by the CPA attached with the death certificate. So the CPA that took the file provided that documentation.
Yeah, thank you. And then a follow-up question is that in your reply brief, also you stated that your mother-in-law passed away, I believe it was January 30th of 2022.
Yes.
And the return was not filed until July of that year. Can you explain similarly what type of correspondence you had with this new preparer or any other preparers in that window, approximate 6-month window between, or excuse me, 5-month window between your mother-in-law passing away and when the return was filed?
The correspondence were mainly done in person. I went to see Ara later in that year, where I had to pretty much well, first of all, there was the emotional aspect of it, the funeral that we had to deal with. There was a lot of estate planning situations that we had to deal with for my mother-in-law, and there was the tax situation came about when I went to Ara's office. So there was several meetings that I had with Ara, who would later file the tax returns. However, the not all the files were transferred over to him, so that I had to look for additional documentation to prepare the tax returns. So there's 2 tax returns I had to prepare, one for the corporation, excuse me, one the corporation that I had, and then one for the personal tax returns. So you had to prepare both of them. So one of them, the corporation, was done first, and then the personal was done afterwards. However, it took time. So I didn't have my documents in order. And the reason why it took until July is because I had to gather all the information. There was a lot of accounting things that had to be entered in the QuickBooks, which we were behind on. Uh, a lot of the business affairs that I had in 2021 were very behind as a result. So there was a lot of data entry that had to be done in QuickBooks. So I had to hire someone to enter a lot of these things that were missed in the previous year. So they had to be entered in manually. So it took a little bit of time for us to catch up with all the accounting.
Okay, thank you. No additional questions for me.
Thank you. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions?
Judge Johnson, no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify really quickly regarding Mrs. Mekhtarian's statement, which was submitted. You mentioned that the illnesses with respect to the COVID-19 for your mother-in-law occurred in September 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then so I'm looking at the statement, and I just want to confirm with Ms. Mekhtarian because Ms. Mekhtarian's statement indicates that the dates of the illnesses were between October 22 and January 2023. And Ms. Mekhtarian, can you just confirm maybe if those are typographical errors?
Yes,
Or
yes. My mother got sick in September, and then a couple weeks later, my grandma got sick, and my mother and grandma both lived together. So that is correct. And my mother passed in January, and my grandmother passed in beginning of February of
Okay.
2022. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I had the timeline correct. Okay. Well, before we go into Franchise Tax Board's presentation, Franchise Tax Board does have the opportunity to ask questions because you testified as witnesses. Franchise Tax Board, do you have any questions or want to participate in cross-examination?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we will continue moving forward. Franchise Tax Board, you requested 10 minutes to make your presentation, and you may do so when ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Noel Garcia Rosenblum, and I, along with my co-counsel Nancy Parker, represent Respondent Franchise Tax Board in this matter. There are two issues at appeal today. First, whether the appellants have demonstrated reasonable cause to abate the late filing penalty imposed during the 2020 taxable year. Second, whether the appellants have demonstrated any basis to abate the estimated tax penalty imposed during the same year. Respondent received the appellant's 2020 California tax return on July 1st, 2022, reporting a balance due. Respondent accepted the tax return as filed and imposed a late filing penalty and estimated tax penalty because the appellants did not file their tax return timely or make sufficient estimated tax payments. The appellant subsequently paid the penalties and filed a claim for refund, requesting the penalties be abated for reasonable cause. This claim for refund was denied, and the appellant subsequently appealed the denial. The appellants do not dispute the imposition or calculation of the late filing penalty, but rather argue that they have demonstrated reasonable cause. In order to establish reasonable cause, a taxpayer must show that the failure to file a timely return occurred despite the exercise of ordinary business care and prudence. The burden of proof is on the taxpayer to show that reasonable cause exists to support an abatement of the penalty, and unsupported assertions are insufficient to satisfy a taxpayer's burden of proof. In the current appeal, the appellants make two arguments for reasonable cause. First, the appellants argue that they interviewed and hired an accountant, Barry Dungy, to complete their 2020 tax return. However, that accountant passed away in May of 2021. The appellants further explain that they were not aware that their accountant had passed away until late 2021. Therefore, due to their accountant's passing, the appellants contend that these circumstances constitute reasonable cause to abate the late filing penalty. It is well established that each taxpayer has a personal, non-delegable obligation to ensure the timely filing of their own tax return, and reliance on an agent, such as an accountant, to file the tax return by its due date is not reasonable cause. The fact that the appellants expected their accountant to attend to a matter does not relieve the taxpayers of the duty to comply with the statute, and an agent's failure to file a tax return cannot, by itself, constitute reasonable cause. Furthermore, the appellants have not shown what steps they took to ensure their 2020 tax return was filed by its due date. The appellants did not maintain communication with Mr. Dungy, as demonstrated by their lack of knowledge of his death until late 2021, and have not shown what actions they took, if any, to file their tax return once they were informed of his passing. Therefore, the appellant's reliance on Mr. Dungy to file a tax return does not constitute reasonable cause. In addition, the appellants contend that reasonable cause exists because the appellant's mother and grandmother contracted COVID-19 during the end of 2021, requiring constant care, and unfortunately both passed away in January and February of 2022. Illness or other personal difficulties may be considered reasonable cause if the taxpayers present credible and competent proof that they were continuously prevented from filing a tax return. Here, The appellants have not met their burden of establishing that their family hardship occurred before the extended filing deadline for the 2020 taxable year, which occurred on October 15th, 2021. While the appellants did provide hospital records, the hospitalization occurred in January of 2022, approximately 3 months after the extended deadline. Lastly, the appellants have not provided any proof supporting their assertion that both spouses were continuously prevented from filing their 2020 tax return due to caring for their family prior to the extended filing deadline. Therefore, while respondent sympathizes with the appellant's loss and family hardship, the appellants have failed to establish that reasonable cause existed under California law, and respondent's imposition of the late filing penalty was proper. Regarding the second issue at appeal, under California law, taxpayers are liable for a penalty for failing to pay estimated taxes if they fail to remit sufficient required payments. The appellants have not made any arguments for why the estimated tax penalty should be waived in this case. The extenuating circumstances relating to the appellant's request for abatement of the late filing penalty occurred after the estimated payment due dates, and therefore do not apply to the failure to make proper estimated tax payments. Furthermore, relief from the estimated tax penalty is not available upon a showing of reasonable cause. Therefore, extenuating circumstances are irrelevant, and there is no basis for the estimated tax penalty to be abated. In conclusion, respondent properly imposed the late filing penalty and estimated tax penalty, and the appellants have failed to demonstrate any basis for either penalty to be abated. Therefore, respondent's position should be sustained. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing Officer Elson, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Thank you. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions?
This is Judge Johnson. I do have a question for Franchise Tax Board with regard to the estimated tax penalty, when those estimated tax payments, I should say, when those were supposed to be made. What was the last date that the final estimated tax payment was supposed to be made?
It would have been January 15th of the year at issue, so it would have been January 15th of 2020.
Okay, thank you. And then with regard to the late filing penalty, assuming the situation that there was no return filed within the extended period for filing, and ignoring for the moment just kind of a interest abatement and adjustments made on the amended return, but just taking the late filing penalty as calculated at this time, when did that stop accruing? When did it reach its maximum? Does that make sense?
Are you asking when the max 25% penalty was?
Right. How's that calculated? When did it stop accruing?
So it would stop accruing about 5 months after the original due date of the tax return. So in this case, let me consult my notes just to make sure with the COVID extension. Sorry, just 1 second. I want to make sure I have the correct date. I don't misspeak. So due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the appellant's original return was due May 17th, 2021. So it would have been 5 months after that, which would have been October 17th, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since there are no further questions, we will move to our closing statement from appellants. Mr. Mekhtarian, you requested 5 minutes to make your closing statement, and you may begin when ready.
Thank you. Your Honors, thank you again for your time and allowing me to present my case. As I close, I want to take a moment to remind the panel of the extraordinary time period during which these events took place. The year 2021 was not a normal year for any of us. It was a time when families across the country were not thinking about taxes and deadlines. They were thinking about survival. My family was no exception. We were in the middle of a global pandemic. Caring for loved ones was with gravely ill, who were gravely ill, with COVID-19, my brother-in-law was fighting for life at home because there was no hospital beds available. My wife and I were the only caregivers that were available. We were doing everything we could to keep her alive while also supporting her elderly mother, who was also sick. Tragically, we lost both of those members. At the same time, I had lost my longtime accountant, someone that I trusted. I was left without professional guidance in the midst of emotional and logistical chaos. I simply couldn't meet the tax deadlines. I understand the importance of tax compliance. I've been a taxpayer in good standing for over 30 years. I've always filed my taxes on time. This is the first time I've ever come to you requesting your help, and hopefully this will be my last. But I ask you to consider this. If you were in my shoes and if your family was suffering, if your loved ones were dying, and if your tax advisor had passed away, would filing tax return be your top priority? I believe that family comes first, and I believe that the law recognizes that sometimes life throws us into situations where even the most responsible among us cannot meet our obligations. The Office of Tax Appeals has acknowledged in the past decisions that reasonable cause exists when a taxpayer exercises ordinary care and prudence and is prevented from complying due to circumstances beyond their control. I believe our situation fits that standard. So I respectfully ask you to consider not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of it. I ask you to consider the human side of this case. I ask you to show compassion, understanding for a family that was doing its best to survive during one of the most difficult times in recent history. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your service.
Thank you. If there are no further questions from my co-panelists, I believe we're ready to conclude this hearing. Hearing Officer Elsom, do you have any final questions?
I do not have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Johnson, do you have any questions?
Ms. Judge Johnson, no questions, and thank you for your testimony today.
This case is submitted on Tuesday, July 15th, 2025. The record is now closed. Just want to thank everyone for coming in today. The panel will meet and decide your case later on, and we will send a written opinion of our decision within 100 days after the record is closed, which is today. Today's hearing in the appeal of Mekhtarian is now adjourned. The next hearing will begin